Good morning, Council. We are live.
Good morning. Thank you very much. I'll call the meeting to order and ask the clerk for a roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Danielson.
Here.
Councillor Dayu. Councillor Shortreed.
Present.
And Mayor Moffat.
I am present. Thank you. There are no remarks. May I have a mover and a seconder for the approval of the agenda? Deputy Mayor Danielson and Councillor Dayu.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Danielson, second by Councillor Dayu, be it resolved that the February 18th, 2021 regular council meeting agenda be approved as circulated.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest today? Seeing none, may I have a mover and a seconder for the adoption of the minutes of the previous meeting? Councillor Shortreed, Councillor Dayu.
Moved by Councillor Shortreed, second by Councillor Dayu, be it resolved that council approves the February 4th, 2021 regular meeting minutes as circulated.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Item number 7 is a public meeting. There are 2 of them. May I have a mover and a seconder to move to a public meeting? Deputy Mayor Danielson, Councillor Shortreed.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Danielson, second by Councillor Shortreed, be it resolved the council adjourned this regular meeting at 9:01 a.m. in order to proceed into a public meeting for the following: 1, zoning bylaw amendment application AHZBA 520, subject land, part of lot 25, concession 2, geographic township of McClintock, applicant 2697507, Ontario, Inc. 2, application number AHZBA 620, part of lots 24 and 25, concession 2, geographic township of McClintock, 15865 Guagama, water access only, Lower Fletcher Bay, applicant Eckler.
Sorry, all in favor? That's carried. Mr. O'Callaghan is with us now. And Sean, if you take us through the first application.
So this property is located on Guagama Lake. It's currently a water access only property, zoned rural and designated waterfront under the official plan. Council at its regular meeting in September of 2020 recommended approval of the proposed consent application to create 2 new lots and 1 retained lot. Several conditions were recommended, including the proposed severed and retained lands being rezoned from rural to shoreline residential 2. This zoning bylaw amendment application, AHZBA 00520, has been received in accordance with the above noted condition. This application will rezone the proposed retained lands from the rural zone to the shoreline residential 2 zone, as well as rezone the proposed severed lands from the rural zone to the shoreline residential 2 zone. Notice of the rezoning was advertised in the local paper, circulated to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject lands, posted on the township website, and circulated to all prescribed agencies and to the Guagama Lake Property Owners Association. No written objections have been received to date, and staff are recommending approval of the proposed zoning bylaw.
Thank you for that. Does any member of council have any questions of Sean on the application? We've gone through the regular process. I do know that we have, Madam Clerk, is there, other than the proponents, is there anybody joining us today to speak to, for, or against this application?
We have the applicants for both applications, and we have Jeff McFadden and Lanny Dennis for this application.
Okay, thank you. So if council has no questions of concern, my only question that I want to circle back on, I did ask initially, is this for a water access, the application was around Old Mill Marina, which the future of which is a little bit unknown. Have we resolved that?
So the condition is they have to secure a parking and docking space. So now that Old Mill's closed, they would have to get a letter from a different marina, essentially confirming that they have those 2 spaces secured. So that condition has not been fulfilled yet, I don't believe, but it's something that would need to be done prior to the severance being approved.
Okay, thank you. And I would then ask if Mr. McFadden and Dennis are lurking in the background somewhere, if they have any questions or can comment further on that.
I believe Lanny might be having some difficulty joining in the meeting. I'm not
Okay,
sure
well,
if-
Mr. McFadden is here. So Mr. McFadden, can you comment on the docking issue? Because we wouldn't want them to come back and have you say, now I have nowhere to park. So you're on mute.
Yeah, so this news about Old Mill Marina, like we understood that some new owners took it over, and we spoke with them 2 or 3 weeks ago. Has that situation changed in the last 2 or 3 weeks?
No, a news of the world. Then that's good. There have been some negotiations around the ownership of that property for some time. So that's good news that some arrangements have been made for new ownership. So that's
and we did get the letter from the new owners. It wasn't from the previous owner or from the company taking care of the receivership. So I think we're all set because these people were very ambitious and willing to work with us and wanted to create good relations on the lake. So I'm confident that that letter should be satisfactory.
Yeah, that's really good news. So thank you for sharing that. We hadn't heard that from up there. Okay, if there are no further questions on that, then. Okay, Mr. McFadden, well, thank you for your time, and we will move on to the second.
I just have one other comment. When you were first reading the applications, like there's 2 applications, ours and it looks like the Ecklers today. Someone had mentioned Eckler. I just want to make sure there's no confusion on the 2 different applications, that we are talking about the one for 2697507 Ontario Inc. and not the Eckler's application, which is separate.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so then Sean, thank you, Mr. McFadden. And Sean, if you want to take us through the next application.
Yes, so this property is also located on Kawagama Lake. It's currently water access only and zoned rural, designated waterfront under the official plan. Council at its regular meeting on September 3rd, 2020, recommended approval of a proposed consent application to create 1 lot and retain 1 lot. Several conditions were recommended, including the proposed severed and retained lands being rezoned from rural to shoreline residential 2. This application has been received in accordance with the above noted condition. This zoning bylaw amendment will rezone the proposed retained lands from the rural zone to the shoreline residential 2 exception 54 zone to recognize the principal and accessory buildings existing on the date of the passage of the bylaw as legal non-conforming. It will also rezone the proposed severed lands from rural to shoreline residential 2. Notice of the rezoning was advertised in a local paper, circulated to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject lands, posted to the Township website, circulated to all prescribed agencies and to the Kawagama Lake Property Owners Association. No written objections have been received to date, and staff are recommending approval of the proposed zoning bylaw.
Thank you for that. Are there any questions or clarifications required from council at this time on this application? Being none, I know that I think Kim Roberts, as agent for this application, is floating about. I don't know if Ms. Roberts would like to say something or needs to say anything at this point.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Sean has covered pretty much everything. We're fulfilling the condition of consent, rezoning these properties from a rural to a shoreline residential type 2, an exception on the retained land to acknowledge the existing development there, and then everything on the severed lot will be developed in compliance with the SR2 designation. There's also going to be a severance agreement on title for this property to make sure that it's all developed in accordance with the environmental work we had done as a condition as well. And just record, because you'd asked with the previous application, it's just across the point. We've sorted out legal access here. We're going with Mountain Trout House has provided a letter for docking for both the severed and retained on this property. And otherwise, I'm happy to answer questions, but yeah. Pretty straightforward, I think.
It sounds pretty straightforward, and so the docking and parking is always an issue with the creation of these lots. So thank you for clarifying the position for this application. Anything further from council on this? No, Ms. Roberts. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And sorry, I'm on the wrong page here on my screen. So that concludes the public meeting portion. May I have a mover and a seconder to return to the regular meeting? Councillor Dayu, Deputy Mayor Danielson.
Moved by Councillor Dayu, second by Deputy Mayor Danielson. Be it resolved, the public meeting adjourned at 9:09 a.m. and the regular meeting of council resumed.
All in favor? That's carried. And I believe we have a resolution for the bylaws. May I have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Shortreed, Councillor Dayu.
Moved by Councillor Shortreed, second by Councillor Dayu. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2021-13, being a bylaw to rezone lands located at part of lot 25, concession 2, geographic township of McClintock, application number AHZBA 00520, applicant 2697507, Ontario Inc., be received and read a first time, considered read a second and third time, and finally passed with the corporate seal affixed.
All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. And Mr. O'Callahan's already gone, so we'll thank him for his time. Number 8 is delegations, and there are 2. First up is Dan Manley from the burgeoning Haliburton Highlands Arts Centre Foundation.
Sorry, Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
we just have to do the second bylaw for the second rezoning.
I apologize for that. May I have a mover and a seconder for the second rezoning bylaw? Deputy Mayor Danielson, Councillor Shortreed.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Danielson, second by Councillor Shortreed. Be it resolved that bylaw 2021-14, being a bylaw to rezone lands located at part of lots 24 and 25, concession 2, geographic township of McClintock 15865, Quaggamoth, water access only, Lower Fletcher Bay, application number AHZBA 620, applicant Eckler, be received and read a first time, considered read a second and third time, and finally passed with the corporate seal affixed.
All in favor of that? That's carried. Thank you. All right, now we're done. And we can move on to delegations. And again, we have Dan Manley from the Haliburton Highlands Arts Centre Foundation looking for support for a funding application. So we'll bring in Mr. Manley. Good morning, Mr. Manley.
Good morning, Mayor Moffat. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you for bringing this to us today. So if you want to take us through, we have seen your presentation, but if you want to take us through your story, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, sure thing. Well, so then should I not step through the presentation, or?
No, you're more than welcome to. It's always an opportunity to promote something new and exciting in the community. So.
Yeah, sure thing. Okay.
Now,
Right,
I'm just going to interject for a second there. Are we going to share screen, or how are we putting this up somewhere?
Up to you. I've got the. If somebody else shares screen, that's fine. I do have it up here for my own guidance. We don't have to if you don't want to either. It's fine.
Well,
if
we'll
everybody has a copy.
see. The clerk sort of runs the show in terms
Okay.
of what's on the screen, so I'll ask her what she would prefer to do.
Sure.
Normally what we do is we have council just view the presentations on their devices that they have with them. We don't share the screen as of yet.
Okay, so Mr. Manley, if you would take us through your presentation.
Sure thing. All right. Well, thank you very much for having me here. My name is Dan Manley. For those who don't know me, I'm the president of the Haliburton Highlands Arts Centre Foundation. And so I'm here to ask, I'll tell you about the Arts Centre Foundation and to ask for a letter of support, as Mayor Moffat said. So who's behind the Arts Centre Foundation? There's myself, Vil Andrea is the secretary, and we have Michael Clipperton, Tammy Ray, Beth Kipping, Drew Allen as directors. And most recently, as of last week, we also have Bridget Gall on the board as well. So there's now 7 of us. 7? Yes, 7 of us. All right, so a little bit about our history. We were formed in 2018, in spring 2018, by 3 members of the Haliburton Highlands Chamber Orchestra. That's myself, Vil, Andrea, and Brent Wooten. So essentially it came down to drinks after rehearsal and us talking about yet again about how it'd be great to have an arts center in a place bigger for the orchestra and various other groups that have been talking about this for quite a while. So we got gutsy and decided to try to do this, thinking that it wouldn't be so difficult, air quotes, to get this all together. So we got a notice of incorporation in December 2018, and then in 2019 we had a number of quick advances. We got some social media accounts. There was an article in the newspaper, So that kind of outed us. And we also introduced ourselves to some local arts groups. And then we created a logo, of course, yes. And then we were granted charitable status in August of 2019. Surprisingly quick. We followed a lot of standard rules and used some standard activities based on recommendations, and we had no questions back and got approved. So we were honestly quite shocked about that. So why do we exist? Well, we exist because the idea of a new theater or a new art center has been around for a while. It's been talked about between various groups. I think of us. I think of the Tammy Ray with HIF and those other movies, and looking for a place that'll fit us all in both rehearsal, workshop, and performance capacities. And so what do we have today? We kind of have a bit of a mishmash of all kinds of spaces. We have church fellowship rooms, some community halls, meeting rooms at the Pinestone. We have the music room at the high school and at Archie Stouffer as well. And a warehouse in the industrial park, for instance, I think where the summer festival rehearses and does their set design and set work. And we also have people's homes, so people rehearse in their living rooms or basements. And also with all these, we have very inconsistent sound quality, acoustics, and a lack of equipment accessories. So people are trucking around all their equipment with them, be it fold-up chairs or music stands and whatnot, and bringing their own percussion instruments and drum sets and all the things. And so we also have church sanctuaries with pretty limited space. And as you can see in the second picture, hopefully it's a little larger for you than for me, Melissa Stevens is standing within the audience conducting the choir. They can't stand back there, even though there's possibly some room stand for the back, because they would create a little enclosure for them. And so it's not the ideal situation. And the choir is huge. So people love to go see it, but it's right there. What else do we have today? We have the Northern Lights, where, for instance, orchestra members have to sit off stage to be able to be part of the orchestra. In that picture there, what you're not really seeing is percussion on the left, and some double basses get tucked away on the right there. Sometimes there's also a person who plays xylophone off the sides as well. And we don't have a musical pit an orchestra pit for musicals and for operas. There's no fly tower to be able to drop sets and do quick set changes. And there's a limited capacity to host larger acts. So if we try to bring a big name up here, the cost doesn't pan out well versus how many people we can fit in the hall. So we can't really bring any large acts out here. And we also have a suboptimal sound system for movie experience. Also the second picture there is the traditional Nutcracker that we have. That's a great sellout. But if you've gone to see it, you'll see that all the dancers are quite crammed in together, especially for all the big moments. So there's not a real chance to really strut their stuff and fan out their feathers. So our vision, so we're thinking, this is a rough idea, and our feasibility studies are going to have to take care of this and help us guide us. We're looking at 300 to 500 seats for a hall, possibly a black box studio as well with 150 seats. Reason for that is that this a black box studio as a second performance space can also be versatile for I guess orations, speeches and other gatherings, and you could also retract the seats and have rehearsals there as well. So a little more versatile. We want something that's acoustically engineered so that it can sound great even whenever you're not using microphones and speakers. And amplification, latest in sound and lighting, and we want a lobby with a concession stand and liquor service. So that's been a tipping point for a bit, that there's no real chance, like especially in the high school, you can't have a drink. It's just not permitted on school property. So it'd be nice to have a full night out experience and be able to enjoy a glass of wine or a beer between acts. We're also looking for acoustically isolated rehearsal spaces. For instance, right now, if there's a performance or something that's going to happen on a Friday evening, or any of these coincidental evenings, on a Friday evening at the Northern Lights, while the orchestra is rehearsing in the next room over in the music room, we have to get bumped out and moved elsewhere because the sound will carry. So if we can still have a rehearsal space that is fully separated from the performance hall, then we can have these two things going on at once and not have to worry about bumping one out. As I said earlier, a fly tower for quick scene changes. and some lecture and masterclass and workshop spaces. Possibly also arts administration, so like the Arts Council could go in there as well. Let's say the Highlands Opera Studio would want to make a home office in there as well. Unified box office, so that we can all take advantage of like one website, one ticketing system, so that we have all these shows that are centralized that way. We don't have to worry about calling a number of different organizations to figure out who's got tickets and how they're sold. And possibly also a set design shop, so a workshop with lumber and all the places where we can store all these things and make them on site versus making them somewhere else, disassemble them, bring them in, reassemble them, so you can really see them assembled and built to spec of the building that you're at. So the case for an art center, well, we feel is going to drive economic growth and attract more residents and businesses to the county. And I think we feel that it's sort of another step in the evolution of what we're doing here, and it'll help bring more growth to the region and keep up with what's happening too, especially with an influx of residents and full-time cottagers that's up here recently. That'll probably continue for the foreseeable future as people find out that it's a beautiful place to be up here. And there's further expansion going on. You know, there's more shopping and more businesses and more malls. Is that, for instance, the plaza that's being proposed near the beer store in Haliburton Village. So all this growth, I think, would go hand in hand. And if there's, and with the new center in Minden, there's just a reason for this to exist, to attract more people, families, and have more things to do. We're also supported, or at least the idea of an institution like this is supported by municipal and county cultural plans. So the various governments here do want this to happen, at least in spirit, well, on paper. The community has outgrown the current facilities. It might be, you know, part of the studies we'll see, you know, if we build it, will they come? Some people say that the hall might not be able to attract and keep so many people, especially with the Northern Lights being a little over 200, and we have to try to justify and figure out studies if this can work for 300 to 500 seats. But we've outgrown it in terms of availability space for community groups to work. And if we do want to attract, you know, make sort of like a casino-rama types events here and bring in a larger acts, we would need a larger center for this. And that's my last point, to attract bigger name performers. So that is our case for it. 2020 activities. We did some more introductions to some local arts groups in early 2020. So we had a meeting at the Pinestone and had various representatives from arts groups, performing arts groups and otherwise. And then from February to March, via U-Links, we got some studies that got started and done, of course, with Fleming out of Lindsay. And in February, we got together with more stakeholders, and we had a community roundtable. Jim Blake he sort of moderated that, and went over just to collect data and information from the various stakeholders to find out, you know, what would be the case for an art center up here, what kind of size, what would we do, a wish list and whatnot for that. And that got fed into the study by the students. In June, we had a successful HEDC LIP application and used that to synthesize the various reports from all these students. I think there were 6 reports, so take the best of that information and make it into a single report, which we did last summer and fall, and we're reviewing that internally now. And in October, we had our first AGM, and our board grew to 5, and then it's grown further since. And so plans for 2021, we're going to continue our community outreach, hence being here. We've also presented at Dysart. We're going to be presenting next week with Minden Hills, and then I'll see a few of you again at the Haliburton County the council meeting, and then in March we'll be with Highlands East. We're seeking essentially letters of support from various stakeholders. It includes municipalities to give support for our grant applications, and so we're going to go back to OTF and try to get a seed grant from them and assemble, do some more fundraising, and essentially fundraise money for to do these studies. We have some quotes in there about average about 60,000 to 75,000 to do a proper feasibility study. We don't want to go into this blind. We definitely want to see what the just really, is this feasible to build? Will this actually work, or will it just be collect dust? So it has to be successful. It's got to have a good business plan. It's got to be able to stand up on its own. So that's what we're trying to do here. So finally, thank you. Thank you for your attention and consideration in this matter. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you very much, Dan. I remember the tremendous effort and fundraising from the community that went in for the creation of the Northern Lights Performing Arts Pavilion, and you're absolutely right. I've attended many events there, and there are some challenges. What's really exciting is that we've seen enough growth in the community over that many number of years that we now have the caliber and number of performances to offer this opportunity. So thank you for picking that up and continuing to move it forward. It's exciting. And you're right. I mean, it speaks, all of our cultural plans in some way speak to this kind of thing. So it's very exciting. I certainly have no problem supporting it, but I think I saw a hand up there somewhere, and there it is. It's Deputy Mayor Danielson. Go ahead, please. You're on mute.
Really exciting proposals, and I really look forward to your success in this endeavor. One question that I would have is, have you considered any outside component to the facility?
As in like a outdoor amphitheater?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely part of our considerations. I mean, it's not that it speaks for itself, but I mean, like our countryside is really beautiful to look at. So if we can find a location that lets us take advantage of the views and maybe some natural topography that would allow us to make an outdoor amphitheater, yeah, that would be wonderful. I mean, it just based on the summer, it would be great to be able to have outdoor concerts. In part of our roundtable meeting last February, I guess a year ago, some of the points brought up is that it should have a beautiful surrounding, so people can go for walks. Like if you're there for a workshop or there for classes, you can be able to walk around. So it makes me think of like the sculpture forest around the college. So naturally, with a seating area with a performance grove or otherwise location that's definitely an idea we want to keep.
Yeah.
That's terrific. Are there other thoughts from council? I see Councillor Dayu, please go ahead.
Thank you so much. This is so exciting. As Deputy Mayor Danielson and Mayor Moffat said, very exciting for Haliburton to see this this possibility come up. There were two keywords that flashed into my mind as I was reading the presentation and then listening to you. The first one was the environment, very much speaking to what Deputy Mayor Danielson said, beautiful surroundings. It would be great to have an outdoor space. My corollary question would be, and it might be a wish list thing, but are there any environmental principles that speak to the nature of this area that you're considering to try to get into that design? Or perhaps are you not at that stage yet, which would be completely understandable? So, is there a way that this place could showcase our love of our natural environment by injecting some environmental principles right into the design? That was one. And the second keyword that leapt into my mind was youth. I know from direct experience that an art center that is not at the local high school can have a fundamental and formative impact on many youth through their involvement, even as ushers or backstage support or whatever it might be. And I would actually argue that youth involvement could be a central case for for this proposal as you go to create your grants. I was wondering, have you thought about that? Is that something, presumably you share that ethos, but is that something that you also see as being a key part of this center?
Yes. So the first question about environmental principles and whatnot. So in two aspects of choosing a location, that would just be quintessential Haliburton. So if it's perched up on a cliff or on some sort of outcropping, so that there's a lot of natural beauty to see around it, that would certainly be ideal. A location has not been chosen. We've been bantering about a few and have looked at some in one of our studies. It's very light at this point, but just looking at different options and what they mean in terms of their location, how location can affect possible partnerships with other organizations. And then also a place that's makes sense economically, that it's around traffic, easy to get to, people want to go there, and then that's just naturally beautiful. So it's either by a lake or has a great vista. And then in design as well, we would want lots of windows, and so you'd be able to have a lot of natural light come in. If you're on Facebook, you can follow us there. We post a number of inspirational photos of either outside landscape or inside design, about places that pique our interest and what we enjoy from each of those. Also then in terms of environment, we would like to also endeavor to have some environmentally friendly designs in there as well. So if there's a lot of natural light, then we can take advantage of that for natural heating. Also, as best we can, we want to use, I don't have all the right terms, but natural heating systems, natural heating sources. So to be as environmentally friendly as possible. There's a lot of boxes to tick in that, not just to tick boxes, but to actually be good responsible citizens, and to be well, essentially carry all carry all these ideals forward. So it just makes sense for us to have systems that are environmentally friendly. As for youth, so a possible thing we've been looking at is being near the college. Which for its sake would be naturally near the high school, but near the college. And if we build education friendly facilities, then perhaps the college would be able to expand their offerings. And so we'd be able to build the place, and that would be a source of revenue for us as well, if the college would want to use those spaces and do teaching there. And then there are a number of youth groups up here, then that would be encouraged for people to be used here. So youth choirs, younger musicians, summer activities and whatnot would be encouraged to be able to use the space. So we definitely have that in mind. It's a very interesting thing that we have here as well. There's also, given our population, the demographic we have here, there are a lot of retirement age people, and it's also it also seen as a great thing to keep people engaged and keeping people going. I think right away of the orchestra that I conduct, and roughly 80% of the people there or more are retirement age. So a number of bands and choirs. So it's sort of good for kind of both ends of the community, so to say. So yeah, education is a high priority for us. So besides actually being able to produce revenue for the center, it's just good for us going forward. If we have more aspects for youth, and that also attracts younger families, and would help to retain and encourage the population growth here.
Thank you for that. So it's evident that there's support for your request. You're asking for a letter in support for your fundraising purposes. And I was specifically to the ones you're aiming at right now. I'm wondering if you would prefer or care to have either instead of or in addition to that, just a general letter of support from the township that you could have on file as you move forward. That would just be couched in sort of general support language, or do you just want to go with, yes, we support this for these reasons for your funding applications, and should you require any other letters of support going forward, you would come back for it? How would you like to approach that? I think I did ask the clerk to put in the resolution that we would provide a general letter of support that you could use going forward, but you need to tell us if that's something you'd like now, or if you would come back for something like that.
Thank you. I think so. Dysart, for what they asked for, they said, well, why don't you craft one for us? So we do have one ready, and if you wanted to customize it, or if you do prefer to write your own, it's essentially general at this point, because we didn't want to come back and although it's great to offer, maybe we would then, but we didn't want to burden councils with, okay, we're applying for this now, can you give us a new letter of support? So we don't mind a general one at this point, and especially because it's so early in the phases of what we're doing. Once we get into further work, and we're either going for we're trying to attract larger donations and larger foundations to donate to us, and that may have a specific wording to it, and we'll probably come back for that.
Okay, so we will, I don't know, Dawn, if that means you need to modify that resolution.
Nope, I have one prepared.
Okay, that's terrific. Well, thank you, Mr. Manley, for this, and thank you for yourself and the others stepping up to see this through. As you've heard today, it is quite exciting, and we look forward to it. So I would ask for a mover and a seconder on this matter. Deputy Mayor Danielson and Councillor Dayu.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Danielson, second by Councillor Dayu. Be it resolved, Council receives a delegation from Dan Manley of the Halliburton Highlands Arts Centre Foundation regarding the construction of an arts centre in Halliburton County. And further, the council supports the project and directs a letter of support be provided to the Halliburton Highlands Arts Centre Foundation for the proposed construction of an arts centre in Halliburton County.
You've heard that. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much, Dan, and we'll leave it to you and Dawn to sort out the exchange of that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll speak soon.
Our second delegation is Mr. Mike March, County Director of IT. This is bringing back a request for a little further investigation into surveillance in the office. Good morning, Mr. March. You're on mute, Mike.
You'd think I'd be used to this by now.
I was going to say it's a Thailand usual for you.
So good morning, Mayor Moffat and members of council. Today I'm presenting a report for a proposed video surveillance system for the Stanhope Township office. If you recall, last November, I had presented a draft video surveillance policy to council, which was ultimately adopted. And during those discussions, council had asked me to investigate options for a surveillance system at the Stanhope admin office for the public entranceway. So this report outlines the recommendations for that system. Working with the CAO, we have suggested a 2-camera deployment for the Stanhope office, 1 camera facing towards the main public entrance, and another camera pointing out from the reception desk. We think this configuration would allow for the best coverage of these areas. The system implementation will adhere to best practices as outlined by the IPC, the Information Privacy Commissioner of Ontario, as well as the requirements outlined in Algonquin Highlands' video surveillance policy. For example, the system is going to employ encryption for video storage. It's going to log all system access. It will email or send text alerts to IT if there's an issue with the system that prevents recording of video. It will have redundant hard drives in the event of failure of one, then the other one will pick up and continue recording. And the system itself is capable of being expanded up to 8 cameras should you wish to go that way in the future. However, additional licensing and storage upgrades would be needed at that point. As per IPC recommendations, it's suggested that we put video surveillance signage at the perimeters of the surveillance area. Council may want to consider surveillance signage outside the main entranceway, as well as one in the vestibule. We do have a signage template as part of Algonquin Highlands' policy that could be utilized. In the report, I've included guidance from the IPC that council can take into consideration when deciding whether or not to go forward with this project. The total cost for the solution is about $3,000, which includes the surveillance systems, the cameras, video editing software, signage, network cabling, and third-party labor costs. If given the approval to proceed today, IT could potentially have the system in place by mid to late March, barring any unforeseen obstacles. And I should also note that my report doesn't assume or comment on the need for video surveillance, just details the logistics for getting that surveillance in place. And that's it. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you for that. And I think your final comment there is really important. And just want to, us to recap on how and why we got here. In today's day and age, sometimes when you make decisions and then stick to your guns, people don't like it and they behave badly. We have had a couple of incidents where staff have felt tremendously unnerved In one case, someone who was looking for a staff member drove their car back and forth between the two parking lots, hoping to catch the staff member. So just things like that. And we closed the office once for threats, and it's a funny world we live in anymore. And I think our decision, and I know council will concur, this is about the safety of staff and providing a healthy and safe workplace. We don't work in the office, but staff do. So I would actually ask the CAO. She is the head of the building and the head of staff. And if you would speak to us a little bit about what you think on behalf of staff about this.
Sure. Thank you. I definitely think it is a good idea to, I've talked quite extensively with IT and Mike, and I do think because we've had a number of incidents, it has unnerved staff, and that feeling doesn't go away completely, and the world is changing, and this will just build on the health and safety aspects that we're starting already to put in place, not only with the pandemic, but with the things that have happened over the last number of years. So I think it is a good idea. I think staff will feel much better in their work environment, when we eventually do open back up to the public. So.
Yeah, and I think that's something as well is, it used to be, it's not like people historically haven't been angry and gone into any township office to sort of, vent their spleen about their concerns. But we are obligated as council and as a corporation to provide a safe environment. So that's changed as well. And so it's not as though there has just recently been some experiences that have been a bit untoward or unnerving. Historically, there's always somebody who's angry about something and storms in the township office to tell somebody what for. But as you say, it is a different world. So looking to council for thoughts on this, I would suggest that if council is supportive of moving ahead with this, that it just be included in budget discussions, because it is pre-budget. It's not a lot of money, but we've got some budget decisions to make. Councillor Deputy Mayor Danielson.
I think it's a good idea. I definitely support the installation. I think I might have been supportive in the past when we've talked about the issues that we've had. My question to Angie would be, what are your thoughts about the time periods? Personally, I just sort of see it operating 24/7, but it might be that you just need it to be operating during working hours. I just wonder what your thoughts are there.
I would say it would be a 24/7 system. That would capture in the event that we ever had, a break-in or anything like that. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thoughts? Thank you for that. Thoughts from Councillors Dayu or Shortreed? Councillor Dayu.
Yes, I fully support it. Council is sometimes in a position to have to make some pretty difficult decisions, and then we step away, and it's our staff members who have to implement those decisions, and they've not had any part in the decision making themselves. And if they say they would feel more comfortable with this in place in order to safely implement those decisions, then I say rock on, let's do it.
Julie, did you want to weigh in, or are you just an okay? Go ahead.
No, I fully support it. I think after the last incident that it's a necessity. I think the staff need to have some kind of comfort going to work every day.
Okay, and so shall we just say yes, but we'll revisit the money as part of budget discussions. We normally defer this close to budget discussions, which are on Monday. We normally defer these things to budget. So should we just hang on and consider this part of next week's discussions? Yes. Okay, may I have a mover and a seconder to receive this report and move along? Councillor Shortreed and Councillor Dayu.
Moved by Councillor Shortreed, second by Councillor Dayu. Be it resolved that council receives a delegation from Mike March regarding video surveillance of the Township Administration Office's information, and that council directs the purchase of the video surveillance equipment be deferred to the 2021 budget deliberations.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. March, for your work on this.
You're quite welcome.
Next up, number 9 is building and bylaw enforcement business. We'll bring in Mr. Moore. Good morning, Mr. Moore.
Good morning, Mayor Moffat and members of council.
First up for you is monthly activities for January. Things are ticking along as always.
They are. We've had a banner month again, and it looks like we're going to be well up over last year's stats. Looks to me like the highlights are we've got 17 permits issued in the month of January, and we realized fees of over 16,000 and a construction value of over 1.3 million. So I'm pretty good.
That's a pretty good start for this time of year. Are there any questions from council on Greg's report about what's been happening in the last month? Deputy Mayor Danielson.
I'm just curious if you had to follow up on any COVID related concerns within the township.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. No, I have not had to follow up on any COVID related concerns. It's been all quiet here. There's been a couple of background comments where people have been maybe reaching out about Airbnb activity, but that's been referred mostly to the health unit and the OPP. So,
because the rentals are all full, even though you're not supposed to travel.
Correct.
Yes. Right. May I have a mover and a seconder then to receive this report? Councillor Shortreed, Deputy Mayor Danielson. Thank you.
Moved by Councillor Shortreed, second by Deputy Mayor Danielson. Be it resolved, council receives building bylaw report BLDG 221 regarding monthly activities for the month of January 2021, submitted by Greg Moore, dated February 18th, 2021.
All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Next up for you is discussion on the septic reinspection program. We have two discussions that I'd like to, two outcomes. One of them is which option to choose, and then just about the septic social. So Greg, if you would take it away for us.
Okay, thank you. So I did, in speaking with WSP Canada via email as well as over the telephone, it sounds to me like the most viable option. Now there is options on the report, as you can see. The most viable one, in my opinion, or in staff's opinion, would be option 1, whereas we continue on with the program as it was designed originally, implementing mandatory inspection in Zone C, which would then realize putting the program back on track. And now this, of course, is all based on waves, potential wave 3, if you will, COVID, or restrictions. But the other options on there, voluntary Zone D, which would be this year was supposed to be Zone D, which is the Oxtongue area. Voluntary Zone D would probably realize a turnout similar to last year's voluntary Zone C, which I think there's been talk of that would basically just encompass anybody who knew that they were in compliance, and it would further hamper the program, whereas WSP wouldn't be able to finish the program within the 4 years or 5 years, sorry, because there'd be too much outstanding. Voluntary Zone C, which is what we went through last year, doing a second round of that would probably not realize, as the report says, probably not realize much compliance at all. Of course, there is the option 4, and that would be up to council to have a look at what they would like to see the program run. Again, I'm looking at, or the staff is looking at option 1 to continue on in its planned run and hopefully get the program wound up within the timelines of our contract. So.
Okay, thank you for that. Let's tackle the which option first. Thoughts from council. Somebody did mention, and I'm sorry I don't recall who it was, that from an environmental perspective, we've made a commitment to undertake this program. It's been going extremely well, and we need to keep that process moving. So I would imagine that with some exceptions, such as has been mentioned in the meeting about, out of country folks and whatnot, there are going to be some, but primarily we would just say get a move on with the program. I believe I saw Deputy Mayor Danielson's hand, and there it is. Go ahead, please.
Looking at this, I initially thought or concurred with Greg's recommendation about option number 1. But I did wonder about the feasibility of option number 1. So continuing on with Zone C, but would it be possible to add on voluntary inspections in Zone D? I'm just sort of thinking that based on last year, we didn't have as much work as we would normally have. So if we could consolidate and get just a little bit ahead of the curve with Zone D at the same time as doing Zone C, that might work. But I would look to you to tell me whether that would create too much issue. I'm assuming that we're going to have to add another year onto this contract no matter what we do.
Go ahead, Greg.
So it was a 5-year program to do 4 different zones, with the anticipation that the 5th year would take up any sort of misses that we had. And I know that now what we're talking about is that the 5th year is going to actually be the 4th year of the program, but WSP is trying to tidy everything up within the 5 years regardless. Even though there may be talk of an extension at that point, depending on how many no-shows and what the pandemic does to us as far as out of country participation. But yeah, we are basically looking at still trying to finish the program within the 5 years.
Yeah, I think Liz, you've raised a good point, because we need to differentiate. I mean, we want to be fair. There's people who simply don't like the program. Let's be honest with ourselves. And but we've made the commitment. So how do we separate out the people who, as example, are out of country property owners who, because of current restrictions, may not get here, versus the people who exist who just simply don't like it and don't want to participate in it. So. But we have made the commitment to see this through. So I don't disagree that if we could do a little bit of both, that might help us move along a little bit, just to sort of cross those lines a bit. And they can only do what they can do, let's be honest. So thoughts from the other members of council on how to approach this? Councillor Shortreed.
I'm just curious, if we did option 1, I think there still would be people who are COVID nervous. Would we be able to have an exception for people like that?
Greg?
I'm not sure if there would be an exception for, I would assume that with our pandemic that has gone on thus far, that there would be an exception to a certain extent. We did, and speaking with WSP, everything is done outside. There's no reason to be nervous, if you will. We can, the inspectors can definitely maintain social distance. The representative or the property owner does not need to be anywhere near the vicinity. They just simply need to be on the property at the time.
Oh, okay.
So I don't think that the WSP inspectors do not enter the home.
No.
I don't think there's going to be an issue if on that front.
Councillor Dayu.
Yeah, my inclination would be to strongly follow the health unit and province of Ontario legal normative framework when applying what possible exceptions could or could not be applicable here. You know, if the public health unit is saying, yeah, no, you're fine, so long as it's only 5 people outside and you're 6 feet apart, I think that should be the line in the sand for us. If people aren't comfortable with that, I'm not sure that's a good enough reason, because there are public health professionals who are saying that that's okay. And similarly, if someone writes and says, hey, I'm stuck in upstate New York or in Georgia and I can't get there because the government of Canada tells me I can't. Okay, then I get that. But I'm not sure there are other reasons that we should consider that have not already been imposed by those other layers of government. It also keeps it cleaner.
Yeah, and I think that would be in alignment with how the EOC has been making a lot of the operational decisions, making sure that the township is doing everything it can, reflective of provincial and federal direction. So that all absolutely makes sense. So what I'm hearing, Greg, is option one and option two, and if we can get going on the folks who are left over from last year, and forge ahead a little bit with the voluntary at the top end in the next zone, that we can just keep creeping the project forward without losing too much ground.
Perfect, thank you.
So I think that's what I'm hearing from council. Okay, so that's good. Thank you for that. And the second one is there was questions and a discussion about the having a septic social this year. Council had said that it preferred to continue to have them, would have to be in a virtual format. I would just, and of course, as I've said before, I feel that the project, the initiative is old enough and mature enough, and there's enough information through the video that was done and the FAQs that we don't need to have a septic social. I think I'm the lone voice in that, but I would like to point out that a septic social happens on the weekends, and virtual meetings require municipal and county staff. So there would be additional considerations in asking folks to manage the meeting, any such webinar or whatever format it would be on a Saturday. So I would like you to think about that, but certainly would look to council for what it would like to do in this regard. Councillor Dayu.
I love the septic socials. I love them. The opportunity for public education on the importance of protecting our environment and our lakes, and to get into the, no pun intended, the nitty gritty of how this works, and to be able to ask those detailed questions. I think they're extremely well received, even though you've got, the odd curmudgeon in there every time, but they're extremely well received. Public education goes through the roof. Yeah, I'm all for it, and I think people are now confident and comfortable enough with the virtual environment to be able to attend and participate virtually. I guess my question would be: does it have to be on a weekend? Given that people can sign in from wherever they are at home, can it be during the week? Yeah.
The challenge is that no matter what day you have it on, it's not the right day for somebody. So. We have heard historically for many, many years that there's a widespread concern with meetings of this nature that are not held on a weekend. It's when the septic social happens, it may be a different world and people may be back to work. So you could be cutting some of those folks out. And I think I would also point out that a septic social wouldn't look like this. It would be, as we've seen in conferences and places, I'm assuming there would be a presentation that people watch, and if they have a question, they're going to have to type a question in the box. It's not 60 faces on a screen putting their hand up and saying things. It's a very sort of organized process of receiving and sharing information. Deputy Mayor Liz has her hand up. Go ahead, please. You're on mute.
I hear what you're saying about the need or not to have a septic social, but I just am, I think I'm kind of with Councillor Dayu about, I think there's been some disjointedness in the last year. People are not as engaged in things as they might normally be. I too was wondering about maybe having it on a weekday, because normally people want to have meetings, that kind of meeting on a weekend, because they want to get here. And in this case, they don't have to get here. Overall, I think it should be probably a little less expensive than having one that's in person. I'm not sure about that, but I'd like us to continue to go ahead with it. I've seen now a couple of Zoom meetings where there's been 100 or more people in attendance, and they seem to work well. I don't think it hurts to remind people about what we're trying to do, the importance of it, and you know, as Julie said, like, what about people who are nervous about it? This helps to reaffirm, you know, that there aren't any issues associated with COVID, and you know, the world, things have to carry on. So I'm for it.
Okay, Madam CAO, what say ye?
If council is interested in moving forward with the septic social through the week, would it make sense to have maybe a special meeting of council and have that as the only item? I'm just thinking sort of.
I don't. Sorry, walk me through that. Like I hear the words you're saying, but I think, no. Like council members of council in the past have attended septic socials, but it's not a mandatory appearance by council, nor is the management or undertaking of a septic social borne by members of council. So I'd be concerned about doing something new. While I appreciate the logistical reason for what you're saying, I'd be concerned about suddenly in year 4 it becomes a special meeting of council when I don't think it needs to be. It's kind of managed by WSP. That's how it's been from the beginning. So thoughts about that, but I don't know what it would look like in the week. So I'm hearing that's fine. So there's going to be a septic social, but there's going to have to be, I guess, it'll have to come back with some details on what it will look like. Platform, whether it's a webinar, just the details of what it would look like. Madam CAO?
And so normally council does pick the date. Is that something you want to do now, or do you want that to come back?
Well, I think it needs to be a little bit more fleshed out. We can keep talking about whether or not it's through the week. I can see the benefit of that given the day and age. I feel that it will also, be open to criticism for folks who, lots of folks are still working and may not have an opportunity. They, with it being Zoomed and YouTubed, somebody could go back and watch it. Folks who want to ask questions through that, whatever forum is determined, could either make sure that they are available or maybe check the FAQs first to see if the question is there. I don't know. I'm not sure where to go with this because it depends on what you guys want to do. Liz, go ahead.
I'm just thinking, as you said earlier, it doesn't matter what day we pick. Somebody's not going to like it. And if this facilitates things, I think that we are in an opportunity right now where we can do it during the week. It's, we're in a different time, people are home. And I suspect will continue to be for at least a couple more months. So it's an opportunity that we could consider.
Yeah. Councillor Dayu.
Yeah, we had more viewings for the Christmas tree lighting in the days after the Christmas tree lighting than during the actual event. And I can imagine people would just click on and watch when they're capable and be grateful for that flexibility. WSP has also been really good at staying open and available to take questions. And I'm sure if there are specific questions that come up afterward, they've got the means to receive those questions and answers. So yeah, I think the more I think about it, the more I believe that having it during the week and then keeping it on YouTube is a great way of ticking a bunch of boxes.
Okay. When has the septic social been historically? What month?
May.
Remember.
Yeah, see, nobody remember. Angie, do you have any idea when I'm going to look in my calendar?
Historically, it's been on the May long weekend. And I think the last one maybe was on a different weekend than the long weekend. But it's usually in May before the inspectors get going out doing their inspection.
Okay. That being the case, the May long weekend looks like it's falling on actually the 24th of May, it would appear. So it could be like Tuesday or Wednesday, the 18th, 19th. Like, does council care when the date is? Can we just leave it to staff to pick a date that's in keeping with previous years and just carry on? Right, okay.
As long as it doesn't interfere with other council meetings.
Yeah, I mean, the expectation would be that the county calendar would be consulted to make sure that there's, and other calendars to make sure that there's no conflicts. Okay, so sounds like we can council would like to go ahead with the septic social on a weekday or a weekday evening.
Then you're back into staff time and additional costs. And let's try a weekday.
Okay. So Madam CAO, we'll leave that with you to just hammer out those details and then let council know. And concerns about the date and time of the meeting can be directed to those who supported a midweek meeting. But anyway. Okay, so we have a so those recommendations there about the choice for the inspection program and the septic social. So anything further on the reinspection program and next steps? And if not, may I have a mover and a seconder? Deputy Mayor Danielson, Councillor Shortreed.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Danielson, second by Councillor Shortreed. Be it resolved, council receives building bylaw report BLDG 321 regarding the 2021 septic reinspection program submitted by Greg Moore and dated February 18th, 2021. And the council authorizes WSP Canada to move forward with option 1 in the noted report, which entails a mandatory program for the remaining 2020 properties of Zone C, as well as outstanding properties from Zones A and B, and option number 2, voluntary Zone D re-inspections.
Yes, yeah, okay. I was just sort of rereading that in my mind. All in favor of that? I think that covers it. That's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Thank you.
Item number 10 is Parks, Rec and Trails business. So we will bring in Mr. Card. Good morning, Mr. Card.
Good morning, Mayor and Council.
Just a couple of items for you, which is surprising in such a busy time, especially that everyone is taken to the trails as they have. The first one is a request for a memorial plaque. So please tell us about that.
Yeah, so I think it's best to start with a little bit of history on the ski trails, just for the benefit of council members who would not have been involved in the change in direction on the ski trails. In 2010, the municipality took over the Frost Center ski trails from a volunteer group. Previous to that, it was entirely managed, maintained for many years, very successfully by a number of volunteers who over time dwindled and offered it to the township. Those volunteers built 2 structures on the ski trails. Both are beautiful on-trail warm-up cabins, and the most recent one was the Deer Cabin, which is about a 16-kilometer ski out onto our Deer ski trail. They raised money and both through funding that they were able to receive from fees that they charged users and their membership to build that cabin. And one of those volunteer members is who is mentioned in this request. Ms. Nielsen reached out to me with a request to put a memorial plaque in the cabin. As outlined in her letter. There is an existing plaque there for another previous very involved volunteer, and she's asking that the same consideration be given. I said that I'd bring the request to council. We don't have any specific kind of program or policies as far as donations or memorial plaques in place. But given the involvement and our ability to be able to assist with installation of the plaque, of course, any COVID regulations are going to have to be considered with timing, asking council whether or not they would support this request.
Yeah, I love this as a way to honor these folks. You're right. There's years and years of tremendous heavy lifting by a whole bunch of people who, once the township took over the trail system, while many of them have continued to offer help, and a lot of them still use the trails very frequently. So I love this idea and look to council for their thoughts on it. So I'm seeing nods. Liz, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I agree that the group has done an extraordinary amount of work on our trails, and I think this is just an excellent idea. I would certainly support it.
Mm-hmm. And Jen, you had your hand up, or you're just going to nod? Just going to nod. Okay, well, if you would work with Ms. Nielsen to see this through, then we're happy to have the volunteers acknowledged in the system they built and in the buildings they built. So that's terrific. May I have a mover and a seconder around this request? Councillor Shortreed, Deputy Mayor Danielson.
Moved by Councillor Shortreed, second by Deputy Mayor Danielson. Be it resolved, Council receives correspondence from Mrs. Stella Nielsen requesting a memorial plaque be installed at ski trails, and the council approves the request and directs staff to work with Mrs. Nielsen to install a memorial plaque at the Deer Trail Ski Cabin.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Next up for you is the monthly activities. Just like everybody else, it's as I've said, nobody at the township's been learning Spanish or baking bread. So it's been a very busy time. So Chris, tell us about what's going on there with your 418% increase in ski revenue.
Absolutely. So there's also a few other things I'd like to highlight that are just some things that are kind of developing that may affect some decisions that may or may not have to be made later in the year. First, in training, I just recertified my playground safety inspector certification, and playgrounds are governed under a CSA regulation. It's updated every 5 years. It just went through a recent update in 2020. I did my original certification 3 years ago, and it's a 3-year requirement for recert. This one took about 25 hours, but there's constant updating and changes to regulations for safety requirements that govern playgrounds, and they govern our playgrounds, and it has implications on the frequency of inspections and documentation required for those spaces. So this is something we've been doing for several years now, and we'll continue to be doing, but we have new staff, and we will be going through some spring training on the format, and we'll be continuing to tweak our process just as we learn. But essentially, there's weekly inspections, monthly inspections, and annual inspections required. So these are things that do take a significant amount of staff time on a regular basis. And those inspections require documentation and follow up on that documentation and proper filing and formatting, all of those types of things. So, you know, as we move forward, anytime we're considering, you know, adding new pieces to play equipment or new implements to park spaces, we have to at the same time consider kind of the inspection and maintenance program that has weekly, monthly, and annual requirements attached to it. Under administration, Minden Forest is undergoing their 10-year review, their development for the next 10 years of their forest management plan. The entire Haliburton Highlands Water Trails program, as well as all of our hiking trails and ski trails, are within shared use forests, where forestry practices are prevalent. And we maintain a relationship with both the forestry companies the M&R and the operators. And there have in recent years been some opportunities for improvement identified just to communications around the proximity of some of the operations to some of our assets, which continue to become more and more busy year over year. So I was given the opportunity, as is everybody, to review the draft 10-year management plan, which I did recently. And these documents are plans that are hundreds of pages long and have dozens of appendices. But in a nutshell, I identified 19 different blocks that would be in proximity to our operations, and I've submitted comments on that to the plan operators and to the M&R, and we've started a dialogue on moving forward with that. And the next step is that they're taking any public comments they received on this draft plan. They're reviewing them at the M&R and the what's called the Local Citizens Committee Group, which is a representation of stakeholders. And then we would expect to see something come of that, which we would then have the opportunity to review. So there may be further considerations with that as we move forward. But again, this is something that year over year and oftentimes monthly, sometimes as operations come within proximity, there's more and more back and forth required between us and them. So council may expect to hear more in that regard as those items develop.
Well, and we've had some challenges in the past. You know, there's the entire plan is in place. It's a public document for review. A couple of years ago, when there was an extensive cut done because of beach bark disease, it left trails looking pretty dismal, and that affects people's enjoyment. So we have to always find the way to marry what needs to be done in terms of forestry practices and the operation of the trails as a public resource. So it can be difficult. So thanks for your time on that. I know I've been to a couple of meetings with you in relation to forestry activity, and sometimes it can just be a bit of a challenge. So does anybody have any questions of Chris on that particular part? It's like the forestry plan is quite a, as Chris said, it's a big document. It's quite a big deal, but it does affect the trail systems that we oversee. Okay, seeing none, then is there anything else you want to highlight in there, Chris?
Yeah, we had an opportunity. I had made council aware of projects and priorities that this year we'd be starting to shift to our new our updated reservation platform with the same company referred to as Camas 5. So we've had an opportunity to look at what the possibilities are there, and it does have the potential, and it will change the face of our reservation system. But at the same time, there's an opportunity to consolidate some more information within the Camas 5 reservation system, which would give users information on our other assets, which we've picked up since the water trails were originally developed, and those being the hiking trails and the ski trails. So many times over the years, we've talked about, as we've grown, the Haliburton Highlands water trails has run into something of kind of an identity crisis, for lack of a better term, in that we now have hiking trails and ski trails, and there's this constant kind of juggling of how to market them all relative to one another, because it's kind of the same user group. We have our information for all of our hiking trails, ski trails assets on our website, and then information for reservations for campsites on Camas 5. So we're reviewing opportunities to get some of our hiking trail information and some of our ski trail information also where the water trails reservation information will live. And depending on as things form, we may have to just look at how we lay that out relative to our website. It's really just kind of a heads up that as we get further into this, council may have to, or may hear more and more as we develop things on how we want to form that. And there's a lot of opportunities, so I'm actually really looking forward to it. And yes, in ski trails, we've got a 418% increase just in the month of January. We're seeing that again in February. So, you know, being one of the few things that were permitted for local residents throughout the lockdown, many people are taking advantage. We've had a spectacular winter for snow, which has not been the case the past several seasons. And actually, in some cases, we've been able to focus staff time more on grooming operations and less on kind of face-to-face interactions with clients, because we haven't had to do that with the COVID lockdown. So spectacular conditions, and we're seeing the attendance go up as a result.
Yeah, and that's terrific. You know, there's always the other side, though, that we have to remain aware of, as you've mentioned, the impacts on how staff spend their time to be able to service the public's interest. And also, I just, my personal wonderment is, at what point, what's the saturation point? At what point do you go and use our trail system and find there's so many people there that it's just not your wilderness experience anymore? So growth is good, and growth also provides opportunities, and it has to be managed. So I suspect, I know we are going to see some changes going forward with how to manage this exponential growth. So that's terrific. Can you just speak a little bit about the Canadian Ski Marathon and how you intend to promote that and let folks know that we are now an official training trail?
Yeah, so this is a very exciting development. It kind of happened quickly. The Canadian Ski Marathon is something that is typically an in-person event that happens annually in Quebec, and it attracts tens of thousands of marathon skiers from all over the country. This year, they've moved to a virtual format where they're offering a number of different locations where people can access ski trails in their local area without having to travel outside of their local area because of COVID. And then they can participate in the marathon virtually, and they can use apps where they post their times. And we've actually had, with the Highlands Nordic Trails Association, I've seen some local users really getting excited and getting into it and taking advantage of it. And as an example, just to kind of paint a picture, there was a local user on the HHNTA trails who recently went through the level of what's called the Courrier de Bois on the Canadian Ski Marathon, which is ski 50 kilometers with all of your gear on your back, stay overnight outside in the bush, the next day ski another 50 kilometers, completely self-supported. This is something that was done previously in person, but is now being done at each respective area. So they reached out to us, offering us the opportunity. Some of their organizers were familiar with our trails and thought it would be an excellent location. We just were able to identify a training trail loop and get the signage in place. And going ahead, just starting to get the word out there. And mainly, you know, we don't have really our own specific marketing plan, but the Canadian Ski Marathon itself has its own marketing plan, which then mentions us as a training location. So people who are familiar with it would go to their website, find out that they can come to our local trail and participate. We have our signage up in our parking lot and on our trails, and we'll look at opportunities to share some of that information on our social media avenues.
Yeah, that's terrific. And I did have to write to Jolene and say, you were doing what? And she explained the Courrier de Bois. All right, thank you for that. Any other questions on Chris's report? Because I think, you know, Parks, Rec and Trails, especially the trail system, certainly with that percentage, we need to keep an eye, because we are seeing tremendous growth and usage, which on the one hand is exciting, but a little bit nerve-wracking on the other. And if not, then I would ask Jen, do you have something you'd like to comment on?
You know, if ever a business case were required for the review that you've just discussed, Chris, that you're undertaking to see how we can marry together our different systems and show them off on our public-facing website, then this is it. You know, it's really perfect timing for that. And it'll be interesting to see if it's possible to to bear in mind what Carol's been saying about, the growth reaches a saturation point, and if there's any opportunity for this review to incorporate that kind of a study, a numbers study of attendees, or I don't know, but it's a great time to be able to undertake this review. Yeah.
Thank you for that. May I have a mover and a seconder to receive this report? Councillor Shortreed, Councillor Dayu.
Moved by Councillor Shortreed, second by Councillor Dayu. Be it resolved that Council receives Parks, Recreation and Trails Report PRT 221 regarding monthly activities submitted by Chris Card and dated February 18th, 2021.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Card.
Thank you.
Item number 11. It's 10:24 on my clock. It's not a tremendously heavy agenda. Would council like a quick break or push through? Quick break. Okay, so now it's 10:25. Let's just take 10 and then we'll come back and deal with Public Works. So we'll see you back here at 10:35, if that's all right. And so we will bring in Brian.
We're not live. We're not live yet.
We're not live?
Welcome back, Council. We're now live.
Well, okay, we are now live. Thank you. We are reconvened at item number 11, Public Works Business. We have 3 items, so we'll bring in Mr. Nicholson. Good morning, Mr. Nicholson.
Good morning, Mayor, Council.
First up for you is just the fuel usage report. The information is there. Thank goodness for Hydro and MNRF, I guess, in terms of fuel sales.
Yeah, it's trending in the right way. Not big jumps in numbers, but still the right way. So,
are there any questions about what's going on at the airport in terms of movements or usage? And if not, may I have a mover and a seconder to receive this report? Deputy Mayor Danielson, Councillor Shortreed.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Danielson, second by Councillor Shortreed. Be it resolved, Council receives Airport Report AP 121 regarding January 2021 fuel usage submitted by Steve Dewey and dated February 18th, 2021.
All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Next up for you is monthly activities. And as I've said with previous department heads, there's no shortage of things to do. Anything you'd like to highlight for us?
well, I guess probably the maintenance department in the building area. They've been working up at the Dorset Rec Center, sprucing that up with the squash courts and doing some work in the gym storage area. So it's been an ideal opportunity to take advantage of that situation there. Otherwise, everything's sort of routine, chasing the same things, checking the water, doing minor repairs. Probably one of the bigger things, certainly from an expenditure perspective, is we did take delivery of our 2021 plow truck, which they're in repairing today. So it just goes to show you, you spend $300,000, it doesn't necessarily get you something that doesn't break down. We've had a couple breakdowns, unfortunately, with it already. One we were able to repair in-house quickly, and this other one is minor but irritating. So anyway, that has taken place, and it's other than that, it's kind of interesting to see hear the perspectives. Chris embracing the snow and creating revenue, and we're despising it and spending money. So it's all in your perspective. Everybody experienced this last week. Everybody's getting tired of the white stuff, and then looking out your window, it's quite amazing. Although this is our first really major storm of the year, just how much snow is sitting on the ground, all coming in little bits and pieces. The roads are in actually extremely good condition, the ones I've driven. They're out pushing snowbanks back today. Just still take us a few days to clean up. Yesterday, we received delivery of the 2021 backhoe. So that's landed on the ground. The unfortunate part about that is on the weekend, our old backhoe broke down. So we had to borrow one from the county. We were scrambling on the weekend to borrow one. So unfortunately, we're probably going to incur some expense on the old one. So we'll see what it is. If it turns out to be minor, they're going to eat it. If it's major, we're in trouble. So anyway, that's unfortunate. Lousy timing. Other than that, the rinks look fantastic. The fellas have been out there in the coldest of weather there yesterday, putting water down. It was it just looks really great. There's so much enthusiasm from the individuals using the rinks, and also the employees that are creating the rink surface. Tremendous amount of pride in their work doing there. It's really, really great to see. So that's about it for me.
That's your highlights. So, yeah, I'm sorry to hear that a brand new vehicle has had some challenges, and I hope there's some pushback to the supplier on that, but I'll leave that within your capable hands. Any questions or comments from council on what PW has been up to? Deputy Mayor Danielson.
I just wondered where we're at, if we've completed the work at the Stanhope Library, or if that's still underway, or if I shouldn't ask at all.
Yeah, it's not a nice question. I got to be honest with you. As late as probably, roughly 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon, I was really reaching out to the potential contractor yesterday. They had given us some quotes, as you're aware, which was exceeded what we wanted to spend. So I have engaged our architect, because there were 2 different style of lifts. And it looked like we were being priced for the more expensive one, and I had to do a bunch of research to see if there was a reason for that more expensive unit, and there doesn't appear to be. And Duncan Ross has got back to me and said, no, we're good with the lower price unit. So yesterday I reached out to the contractor and asked him to price that in, and he had also priced in some works that were in the grant process as in-kind work by the municipality. Not a large sum, but still trying to whittle that number down to an acceptable number. So I'm hoping today or tomorrow I do hear back from them. It was stressed that May 31st is our completion date for the grant at this point, unless we reach out to them for more extensions. Right now, he doesn't feel he has a lot of work to do to complete this project, but the difficult portion is going to be getting other suppliers, such as the front door has to be replaced. There's about a 10-week turnaround on the lift itself. And right now we're probably sitting at about 15 weeks until the end of May. So we're getting down to, for the ordering of materials to get them in here into a time crunch. So hopefully we get this resolved and moving forward. As I explained to him, I don't really care when he starts as long as we get it completed and we get our grant. We're able to maintain that funding. If he feels he's got 2 days worth of work, and as long as he gets done like the week before the end of May, you know, I'll leave his timing up to him as long as he notifies us. So anyway, it's in process.
Thank you for that. We do know across a range of projects from the 2020 year that there have been delays for a variety of reasons, including supply chains. And so let's hope he can stick with the timetable that we have with the grant. But lots of things have been delayed, and we'll look forward to seeing that completed for sure. Are there any other questions on monthly activities? Liz, go ahead.
Just on this same subject, I'm just wondering if some of the delays can be argued to be related to COVID, whether there wouldn't be some ability to extend the grant, because quite often there has been, you know, when you've been able to make COVID-related arguments.
I reached out to them, not specifically in regards to extending the timeline. I was having difficulty getting responses from individuals. So I had our maintenance department look at it, and we were looking at potentially doing it in-house if push came to shove. So I reached out to them to see if that was doable and not affect our grant because of in-kind work, etc. And they granted me permission to do that if I had to. Now, I also see back in documentation whereby we've already extended the timeline to this project twice. So they're receptive to it. So whether or not they're receptive to it a third time, I'd rather not test those waters if at all possible. But if we have to, I think they would be somewhat receptive.
Well, we'll certainly leave that with you to ensure that the contractor can get as far ahead as possible so that we don't have to enter into any of those conversations with the funder. So we'll look for your steady hand there. Any other questions about this report? Jen, did you have your hand up? Councillor Dayu? No, you didn't. Okay. May I have a mover and a seconder to receive this report? Councillor Shortreed and Deputy Mayor Danielson.
Moved by Councillor Shortreed, second by Deputy Mayor Danielson. Be it resolved, Council receives Public Works Report PW 521 regarding monthly activities submitted by Brian Nicholson dated February 18th, 2021.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And we are going to talk about some changes to the household hazardous waste events. And I believe Melissa Murray is coming in to talk to us about that. Good morning, Ms. Murray.
Good morning, Mayor and Council.
You have a report about some changes for household hazardous waste collection. So if you'd like to take us through that, please.
Yes, no substantial changes proposed there, keeping with the schedule that we've had for the past 2 years, essentially. Obviously, in 2020, the date for our May event was postponed, but this would be reverting back to our usual, having the May long weekend. The week before the July long weekend, the Labor Day weekend, the week after the August long weekend, and then the Thanksgiving Day weekend as we have had previously. So keeping with the same contractor and respectfully asking Council's permission to move forward with extension of the contract that we've had with Buckham Environmental. We've worked quite well with them in the past. The only significant item note in the report is that we're upcoming on July 1st to the end of our current hazardous waste program, and new regulation coming into force hopefully for July 1st. I've just had a chance to see the proposed regulation, but it's a little bit complicated moving to individual producer responsibility. So I can't comment at this time sort of all what that could mean, and until we're actually speaking with producers and looking at what services they might want the municipality to provide. I can't even speculate on that. So respectfully, I've asked if we could put forward a schedule for this year, sort of moving forward as we have in the past.
Thank you for that. And there will be a slight change in expenditures in relation to not working with Minden Hills on a couple of dates, but I imagine they won't be significant.
That's correct. Not a significant change there. We do have the opportunity, if council so desired, to extend the length of two of our events. The one at the May long weekend at Maple Lake will be a solo event, not in conjunction with Minden Hills, and the Oxtongue event will not be in conjunction with Minden Hills. So there was opportunity to that, but I think we've been able to handle the traffic that we've had at Maple. Certainly, Oxtongue is not a well-attended event at all, so I wouldn't recommend any changes at that site.
Okay, well, thank you for the report. Are there any questions or concerns from council on the request? Deputy Mayor Danielson, you're on mute.
I don't want to be obtuse, but I'm not quite sure I understand the rationale for not being able to partner just because they're doing a full day and we're doing a half day. I just don't see what the issue is there.
Melissa, can you address that?
Certainly. So we've shared some of the event costs with Minden Hills, having the same contractor. So they travel up to the area, do a half day at Minden, and then half day with us. So because Minden is now moved to having a full day event, obviously we can't share that day with them any longer. So we'll be doing a solo event on the May long weekend there, and the Oxtongue day. So Beckham has been very generous to keep the costs low for that, and not see a significant change to our costing.
Okay, is there anything else from council on this? And you're okay with the extension working with Buckham? So may I have a mover and a seconder for this report? Deputy Mayor Danielson, Councillor Dayu.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Danielson, seconded by Councillor Dayu. Be it resolved, council receives Public Works Report PW 621 regarding household hazardous waste collection events 2021, submitted by Melissa Murray and dated February 18th, 2021. The council concurs with staff proposal to hold 5 household hazardous waste collection events in 2021 to be held on May 22nd and October 9th, 2021 at Maple Lake Landfill, June 26th and September 11th, 2021 at the Dorset Transfer Station, and August 7th, 2021 at the Oxtongue Lake Landfill. And the council concurs with staff recommendation to extend the agreement with Buckham Transport to provide household hazardous waste event services for events held in 2021, and a bylaw be tabled at the next regular meeting to authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the agreement.
All in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Brian and Melissa.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Next up is fire business, and we'll bring in the chief. There he is. He's a bit shadowed. I would like to introduce council to Michael French, who is our new fire chief. And Chief, I'd like to, on behalf of council, issue you a warm welcome to Algonquin Highlands. You bring tremendous experience to the role, and in fact, the area is sort of your old stomping grounds from a different part of your life. And I'm sure we all look forward to your steady hand at the helm and your leadership based on your experience. So thank you for joining us, and welcome to Algonquin Highlands.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity you're giving me. The reception from your staff has been great. Any of the firefighters I've met up over the last 2 evenings have such a positive atmosphere. So really look forward to being part of your team. Thanks again for that opportunity.
Thank you. A couple of items that are under your purview. The first one that I will ask you to speak to is I did ask for the closure of the fire college being of some concern to for Algonquin Highlands to make a statement on that. And I know that you've seen the draft resolution, and did you have some words on the closure of the college and possible implications?
Definitely. It's really nice to see that you're putting the resolution forward, and it seems to be a provincial initiative. A little background is when this got announced, they had no consultation with the Ontario Association of Fire Chiefs, no consultation with the Firefighters Association of Ontario, and from my understanding, they didn't have any consultation with the Fire Marshal of Ontario. So it came out of surprise in doing that. It would impact us in the realm that going to the college was a chance for people to get the socializing, the training at a low cost, because the fire college charged $65 for a course. That included accommodation, meals. That was normally for a week. So it was a real hindrance on the provincial government. Since that's happened, there's been a lot of backlash. I sat in a webinar on Wednesday that was all about what the OFM, Ontario Fire Marshal's Office, was going to do going forward. They're saying they're going to offer more opportunities for us training within our area, which is good. When it comes to the training, I think the firefighters going to college was more like a reward than the actual getting to see other firefighters and just getting to go for that opportunity. So I really, truly don't think it's going to change by anything I've heard. It's well on its way to leaving. But in saying that, I think we can feel quite comfortable based on what I've seen so far here for Algonquin Highlands is we're very well prepared. I see what CJ, what he's done for the recruit training along doing it at a county level. Like that program is probably better training that they're getting at the fire college. And the nice thing about that training, they're training within the county, so they're getting to know each other and train with them. So I'm very comfortable with that part of it. We are progressive. We do have the proctors in place to do exam testing. The costs where we might run into is with these blended courses where you take a lot of it now on the computer is having to put some program to compensate the firefighters what they're doing online. And that's something we can look at, but it probably isn't more of an expense than it would be to send them to the college. For officer development, the NFPA, the way it works is if you're an instructor, if you've taken a course, once you've taken the course, that gives you the opportunity to teach the course. And again, we have people that are trained the trainers in ice water, which Algonquin Highlands is the leader in that again. So the county's counting on us to work with them. So that's good. They run online courses from the JIBC, the Justice Institute of BC. So that's the cost to register for the course, but we don't have to pay the travel for them to go to the fire college. So I'm quite comfortable if we don't succeed in saving the fire college. There is other opportunities partnering with Lake of Bays in Huntsville. Huntsville does have their own training ground. So it's an approved place. So it's not going to be a real financial implication on us. And I think we're in very good position if it isn't saved.
Well, I appreciate that perspective because the unknown financial implication was one of the concerns, given that we are only just entering into budget discussion. So I feel a little better knowing that we don't have to have anything floating around out there for just in case. It sounds like you've got enough of the connections and the history and have it well in hand. So thank you for that thorough explanation.
You can feel comfortable with whatever happens here.
Yeah, good. Thank you for that. And thank you too for your high praise on our services based. This is day number 3 for you. So day number 2, 3. So thank you.
It is very impressive for a volunteer department for the equipment you have and the programs in place. It is very, very impressive. And CJ has been wonderful. He lives and breathes for the fire service here, and that's so nice to see. And so have your firefighters. They're taking a lot of pride in everyone I met's been positive. So that's nice to see.
That's terrific. Thank you for that. If there are there any questions about the resolution for the fire college closure? And if not, may I have a mover and a seconder to move it along? Deputy Mayor Danielson, Councillor Dayu.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Danielson, second by Councillor Dayu. Whereas municipalities are mandated to have fire departments, yet there are no provincial or federal funding for the training and equipping of volunteer fire departments. And whereas the Ontario Fire College has been in existence since 1949, and whereas the Ontario Fire College has built a reputation of integrity, credibility, and reliability in providing training for Ontario firefighters. And whereas the Ontario Fire College is the most cost-effective way to certify firefighters to NFPA standards in Ontario. And whereas the Ontario government enacted and revoked OREG 37918 firefighter certification in 2018. And whereas when the Ontario government revoked OREG 37918 firefighter certification, the Office of the Solicitor General advised that the act would be amended and brought back in the future. And whereas closing such a vital facility without either consultation or a firm plan in place puts municipalities and their citizens at risk on issues of safety, service, liability, and accountability. Therefore, be it resolved that the Township of Algonquin Highlands deem said closure as irresponsible and short-sighted and requests that the province of Ontario reconsider its decision to close the Ontario Fire College and undertake an appropriate consultation. And further, that this resolution be sent to the Honourable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, the Honourable Sylvia Jones, Ontario Solicitor General, the Honourable Steve Clark, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the Ontario Fire Marshal John Pegg, and MPP Laurie Scott.
Council, you've heard that. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Secondly, for you, Chief, although it's not your report, is just a monthly activity, so I don't know that we need to spend too much time there. Council's read it. Nice to see that the 21 class of recruits is coming along. Chief, did you have any comment on what you see there and how it is going to play into what your plans are?
Again, it's very positive with the recruits. That was one of my concerns when I had is what kind of program there was. And like I say, CJ's working really good with the other team members within the whole county. So I really think that's positive. The number of recruits is really good too, because it's building up our numbers. So it's I think everything is positive right now. So hopefully we can keep it going that direction. And I really look forward to what's to come.
Fabulous. Thank you. Any questions from council on fire report? And if not, may I have a mover and a seconder to receive it? Councillor Shortreed and Deputy Mayor Danielson.
Moved by Councillor Shortreed, second by Deputy Mayor Danielson. Be it resolved that council receives fire service report FD 321 regarding monthly activities submitted by Jonathan Wilker dated February 18th, 2021, and the council accepts with regret the resignation of Craig Worsfold. And the council approves the reinstatement of Tanner Pekarski, and the council approves the promotions of Dallas Lattenville to Station 80 Captain and Dylan Nyman to Station 60 Captain, and further the council accepts the hiring of new recruits for the 2021 class. Caleb McGeegan, Station 60, Tony Palermo, Station 70, Greg Waller, Station 80, Kiana LaBurns, Station 80, Rob Brooklot, Station 80.
You've heard that, council. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Chief. And again, welcome. And hopefully we can have a conversation in person someday soon.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you. Next up is finance business. It's one item, accounts payable. So Madam Treasurer will not be joining us unless there are questions that council has. So if I could have a mover and a seconder to receive the accounts payable report. Councillor Dayu and Councillor Shortreed.
Moved by Councillor Dayu, second by Councillor Shortreed. Be it resolved, council has reviewed the expenditures incurred as set out in the February 18th, 2021 account summary in a total amount of $841,880.88 and hereby approves payment of same.
All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Number 14, administration business. We have a report from the CAO on Bang the Table, which was I accepted an invitation from the CAO to go through the orientation on it, and it's this big. It practically mows your lawn for you. So there will be some, I think, robust conversations going forward when and if we get our communications contract in place. But I'll leave the CIO to take us through her report on it.
Thank you. Yes, it is it is large, and my report just barely skims the surface on it. The purpose of my report today really is to get council's approval to sign the contract with Bang the Table. As council recalls, last year we included it in the budget, and we also applied for funding for the communications coordinator. The intent was that that position would move that project forward, and unfortunately our funding was denied for the communications coordinator, so it just didn't happen. And so we're hopeful to move that forward this year. We did sit in on a demonstration. It has huge possibilities for our township, and that's really exciting. You know, I've outlined some of the things that it will do, and also that a number of things will come back to council for consideration and approval. Certainly one of those things is that we need a theme for our website. And so that will come back. You know, I'm hopeful council will get their thinking caps on and maybe bring some ideas forward around that. I've included some links so council can have a look at other townships that use Bang the Table. But today really is the purpose of this is to get approval for from council to sign the contract. I've outlined there that this year in the budget, we require $7,500, $5,000 for the contract itself, and $2,500 is for onboarding. That includes training for staff and that sort of thing. Each year thereafter will be $5,000 for the subscription to Bang the Table. So.
Questions from council, Deputy Mayor Danielson.
I'm excited about this. I think it can do so much for us. I'm kind of wondering about the theme thing. Is that a theme for each project that we work on, or an overall theme? And you know, given the possibilities, how would you ever land on one theme?
Yeah, I was going to say it's meant, like you see in front of you, it's other areas have, you know, reach out Romero, which I like because of the alliteration, you know, have your say HK. So that's what we need to call it. So the county's use of Bang the Table is called Wade In. So regardless of the topic.
Okay.
So it has so the portal has a name. So that's where there's a little bit of fun, is to come up with a name that is reflective of what we hope to do. And I just like to point out too, I jotted some notes when Chris was doing his report for Parks, Rec and Trails. There's a number of ways that you can use this portal to reach out, and it's not all hard business. Other communities are using it for photo contests. We have examples that under the Parks, Rec and Trails snow sculpture and the fishing derby and events like that. So we can use this portal as an opportunity to engage with the public and encourage people to participate and get out and stay active, as well as deciding how it is. We'll work with the if we do agree to go with the communications person through budget discussions, then that person could lead us in some conversations about how else we could reach out to the community as we move forward. So yeah, I think I just gave the answer there, Angie, and long-winded, but
that's fine.
And it might be helpful to if council hasn't already, to go and click on some of those links and see how other communities are using it. And that will form, I think, the basis of a somewhat robust conversation going forward. Councillor Dayu, go ahead, please.
My apologies if I've blipped on this fact. Is there any scope for modernization funding going towards this? Have we already had this conversation?
That's a good question. Angie, where are we on that?
Yes, council did approve that the use of modernization funds for it.
Yes. Well, you're welcome.
Isn't it funny? You know, you make decisions at a meeting and you think that was a good meeting and I'll remember all those decisions. And then like a day later, you're going, what did we do about that? Yeah. Thank you for that. Is any further discussion? Everyone's going to put their thinking caps on as to how to approach what we might call ourselves in this new portal. But meantime, may I have a mover and a seconder to receive the report to get us going on this? Councillor Dayu and Councillor Shortreed. Thank you.
By Councillor Dayu, second by Councillor Shortreed. Be it resolved, the council received report CAO 521 regarding Bang the Table Community Engagement Tool contract submitted by Andy Bird and dated February 18th, 2021. And the council hereby concurs with the recommendation made in the said report and authorizes the mayor and clerk to sign the said contract.
And just before I call for the vote too, we do have, we are garnering a bit of an audience with the meetings being live streamed. So if anybody out there in the world has some suggestions we might consider as to what to call this, we could engage on the engagement tool. Because the public often has good ideas. So maybe somebody will send us something that's delightful. You've heard that resolution. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Next up is planning business. So we'll bring Mr. O'Callaghan back in to join us. Welcome back, Mr. O'Callaghan.
Yes, thank you.
First up is just the committee of adjustment update. So the minutes are there. If there's no questions, which there usually isn't, I would ask for a mover and a seconder to receive that report. Councillor Shortreed and Councillor Dayu.
By Councillor Shortreed, second by Councillor Dayu. Be resolved that the January 29th, 2021 Committee of Adjustment meeting minutes be received as information.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. A series of applications. We've got a bit of a run these days on Shore Road allowance closing. So we'll start with the first one, which is Can and Purvis on Boschton.
Yes, so this is an application to close the Shore Road allowance in front of this property. It is a developed property and there are some structures located on the Shore Road allowance, but other than that, nothing really out of the ordinary with the application, and would recommend it proceed through the regular steps.
Any questions from council? May I have a mover and a seconder? Deputy Mayor Danielson, Councillor Shortreed.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Danielson, second by Councillor Shortreed. Be it resolved, council hereby approves in principle application 121 made to stop up, close, and convey the shoreline road allowance fronting property located at concession 2, lot 15, geographic township of Stanhope, Boschman Lake, and that the applicants are requested to proceed in accordance with the shoreline road allowance closing procedure.
All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Next up, same again on Cushog under the name of Ford.
Yes, another application here to close the Shore Road allowance in front of this property. Once again, nothing out of the ordinary to report, and would recommend they proceed through the regular steps to close that Shore Road allowance.
I like when they're neat and tidy like this.
Yes.
And these all appear to be. Any questions from council on this application? May I have a mover and a seconder? Deputy Mayor Danielson, Councillor Dayu.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Danielson, second by Councillor Dayu. Be resolved, council hereby approves in principle application 321 made to stop up, close, and convey the shoreline road allowance fronting property located at concession 4, lot 5, geographic township of Stanhope, Cushog Lake, and that the applicants are requested to proceed in accordance with the shoreline road allowance closing procedure.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Shore Road closing application on Quagama for McPherson and Slack.
Yes, so once again, this is a fairly straightforward application to close the Shore Road allowance. There is an existing cottage and accessory building located entirely on the Shore Road allowance, but I am recommending they proceed through the regular steps to close that.
Questions from council? May I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Dayu, Councillor Shortreed.
Moved by Councillor Dayu, second by Councillor Shortreed. Be it resolved, council hereby approves in principle application 421 made to stop up, close, and convey the shoreline road allowance fronting property located at concession 13, lot 26 and 27, geographic township of Sherburne for Quagama Lake, and that the applicants are requested to proceed in accordance with the shoreline road allowance closing procedure.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Shore Road allowance closing application for Frolic on Skin Lake.
Yes, so this is a developed property on Skin Lake. The dwelling appears to be partially or entirely located on the Shore Road allowance, but I am recommending they proceed through the regular steps to close that Shore Road allowance.
Especially for an indoor kitchen. That's helpful. Any questions from council on this particular application? May I have a mover and a seconder to move it along? Councillor Shortreed, Deputy Mayor Danielson.
Moved by Councillor Shortreed, second by Deputy Mayor Danielson, be it resolved, council hereby approves in principle application 521, made to stop at closing Bay the Shoreline Road allowance fronting property located at concession 7, lot 18, geographic township of McClintock, Skin Lake, and that the applicants are requested to proceed in accordance with the Shoreline Road allowance closing procedure.
All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Shore Road closing application on Maple Lake for Finland.
Yes, another application here to close the shore road allowance. It is a developed property. And I would recommend to proceed through the regular process to close that shore road allowance.
Any questions from council? May I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Dayu, Councillor Shortreed.
Moved by Councillor Dayu, second by Councillor Shortreed, be it resolved that council hereby approves in principle application 621, made to stop at closing convey the Shoreline Road allowance fronting property located at concession 4, lot 27, geographic township of Stanhope, Maple Lake, and that the applicants are requested to proceed in accordance with the Shoreline Road allowance closing procedure.
All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. And finally, once again, a closing application for Gattermeyer on Maple Lake.
Yes, another application here for Maple Lake. This is a developed property as well, and there are some plans to potentially do some work to the cottage in the future, which appears to be located on the shore road allowance. So first step would be close the shore road allowance and would recommend it proceed in regular fashion.
Questions from council? Mover and a seconder. Councillor Dayu, Deputy Mayor Danielson.
Moved by Councillor Dayu, second by Deputy Mayor Danielson, be it resolved, council hereby approves in principle application 721, made to stop up, close, and convey the Shoreline Road allowance fronting property located at concession 4, lot 25, geographic township of Stanhope, Maple Lake, and that the applicants are requested to proceed in accordance with the Shoreline Road allowance closing procedure.
All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. O'Callaghan.
Yes, thank you very much.
Item number 16 is external board meetings, and I don't believe that I certainly, where my name is attached, I have nothing to update. I don't know if the deputy mayor, as county warden, has anything on EORN she'd like to share. Is that?
Two things. The Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus has written to both the federal and provincial governments, just further promoting the benefits of the GIG project that they've been working on. And it may be in the very near future that they will be asking all member municipalities to write letters of support as well. But that request will come to us formally. Otherwise, the EORN board will be having elections in March for their board, and Mayor DeVolen has put his name forward, and it's my sincere hope that he will be able to continue on the board because he's been a valued member. He's very knowledgeable, and we need somebody. We need a local voice in there to make sure that that our interests are looked after.
Yeah, I agree that is very important for that local representation. So thank you for that. Does anybody have any questions of Deputy Mayor Danielson on this issue? Okay, thank you for that. And
one other quick thing.
Yes, ma'am.
It's my understanding that there will be an announcement made very soon on the CellGap project. They've actually, I think they've landed on this successful proponent, but you know what, the province likes to be involved in any announcements like that. So an announcement will come soon, and shovels will be in the ground this spring soon. And that's exciting.
That is exciting. We also need to remember shovels in the ground doesn't mean immediate benefits for broadband, because it's going to take some time to. It's a big project. It's kind of like moving the Queen Mary, right?
Yep.
So, but anyway, at least it's been plugging along, and we're going to get there hopefully sooner than later. Thank you for that. There's no general business correspondence. I believe there is a motion to request to support one of the pieces of correspondence. Deputy Mayor Danielson.
Yes, I'd like to see us support the resolution that came out of Welfare Hermosa regarding the review of MFIPA legislation. Actually, I'm surprised. There have been so many changes in the last few years about this that the legislation is actually 30 years old. So I think it's time for us to look at it from a number of different perspectives. I believe our clerk would be interested in seeing that happen too. So I'll put the motion forward.
Thank you for moving it. Would either of the other councillors care to second that to move it forward, please? Councillor Dayu, thank you.
By Deputy Mayor Danielson, second by Councillor Dayu. Be it resolved, council supports the Township of Guelph Hermosa motion regarding a review and reform of the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, and further a copy of this resolution be sent to the Ministry of Government and Consumer Services and the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing.
All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. And may I have a mover and a seconder to receive the correspondence listing? Deputy Mayor Danielson, Councillor Shortreed.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Danielson, seconded by Councillor Shortreed. Be it resolved that council receives the correspondence listing for the period of January 28, 2021 to February 10, 2021 for information.
All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Bylaws. May I have a mover and a seconder for the bylaw? Sorry, I just had a little gap there. Councillor Dayu and Councillor Shortreed.
Moved by Councillor Dayu, seconded by Councillor Shortreed. Be it resolved that bylaw 2021-15 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement between the corporation of the Township of Algonquin, Highlands and Bang the Table be received and read a first time, considered read a second and third time, and finally passed with the corporate seal affixed.
All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. May I have a mover and a seconder for the confirmatory bylaw? Councillor Shortreed, Deputy Mayor Danielson.
Moved by Councillor Shortreed, second by Deputy Mayor Danielson. Be it resolved that bylaw 2021-16 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings council held during its February 18th, 2021 regular meeting be received and read a first time, considered read a second, third time, and finally passed with the corporate seal affixed.
All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. And finally, adjournment for today. May I have a, we don't need a mover and a seconder, but can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Dayu and Deputy Mayor Danielson.
Moved by Councillor Dayu, second by Deputy Mayor Danielson. Be it resolved that the February 18th, 2021 regular council meeting is hereby adjourned at 11:20 a.m.
All in favor of that? Thank you. That's carried. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for your time today.